Good afternoon, half a day. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing is now called to order. For the record, today is Wednesday, June 24th, 2020, and the time now is 1:08. Notices for this budget hearing was disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets. First public notice was issued on Monday, June 15th. Second notice was June 22nd. The committee will hear and accept testimony on Bill 282-35 LS, the Fiscal Year 2021 Appropriation Act, as requested by the governor, relative to the Guam Fire Department Fiscal Year 2021 budget request. Joining me today for this budget hearing is the Oversight Chair for the Guam Fire Department, Senator Clint Rigel. And then to my left is Senator Regine Besco-Lee. On the second level, we have Senator Jim Moylan and Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Senator Luis Muñoz, and Senator Tello Taigui. General rules for the budget hearing. The conduct of this budget hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying on behalf of the department will be recognized by myself and invited to the panel. And we have Chief Stone and Chief Angoku, or Onkanko. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide my legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony may be read, and lengthy testimony should be summarized. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. My colleagues, the panel, please be reminded that we are only discussing budget 2021 for the Guam Fire Department. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony. Once you're done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by members of the committee. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted/removed from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and title for the record. At this time, I ask the panel members from the Guam Fire Department to rise and for our Sergeant at Arms to please swear them in. Thank you. I would ask the panel to please identify yourself and state your rank, and please begin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. I'd like to ask if you're okay with it, I'd like to be able to remove my mask for ease of communicating with you. All right, thank you very much. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Daniel Stone. I am the Fire Chief for the Guam Fire Department. Joining me this afternoon is Assistant Chief Mike Unkanko. He is our Administrative Services Chief of Bureau. Buenas and Hafaday, Senator San Agustin, and members of the Committee on General Government Operations, Appropriations, and Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Guam Fire Department's Fiscal Year 2021 proposed budget. Before proceeding with presenting the GFD 2021 request, I would like to provide you a backdrop of my testimony with an overview on our direction, challenges, and highlights, and accomplishments that should bring you an understanding of the professional service that the Guam Fire Department, its administrative and support staff, and the emergency medical dispatchers provide to our island community. My priority remains to ensure that our members are led, trained, equipped, and paid to meet our mission mandates, to increase our efficiency and capabilities while decreasing expenditures and seeking revenue enhancement through cost recovery and eligible grants. The Guam Fire Department is mandated to provide fire protection, fire prevention, fire suppression and extinguishment, and the protection of life and property. Providing these services requires a comprehensive administration of an emergency medical services program to include wildland firefighting capabilities for the territory of Guam. The Guam Fire Department also oversees an extensive fire prevention program, inclusive of fire inspections, public fire safety education and training, international fire code enforcement, fire investigations, and plan reviews for new and existing building construction. Additionally, GFD operates and manages the Enhanced Emergency 911 Communication System and an extensive land and sea search and rescue program. Furthermore, Homeland Security initiatives require that the Guam Fire Department to provide a comprehensive hazardous materials response team, a rapid intervention team, as well as an advanced life support program. We accomplish our missions by promoting safety and maintaining a well-equipped, highly trained, and motivated force of professional firefighters, EMTs, rescue personnel, emergency medical dispatchers, and promoting fire prevention through public safety education programs. Our goals and objectives are: maintain timely, effective, and quality medical response to all calls for assistance to the island community, which will be accomplished by maintaining the mandate requiring all firefighters to be emergency medical technicians. Continue the development of our training program so that all firefighters acquire National Registered Emergency Medical Technician and Fire Service certification as fire service professionals to any type of emergencies. We are also in development of a comprehensive professional development training curriculum that will provide the most current and updated leadership and management fire service training to be attended by our fire officers and our chief officers. We wish to continue to train those firefighters who are EMT intermediates to maintain their current certification level, as well as to identify the first cohort for our EMT paramedic program. We are currently working collaboratively with the Guam Community College and the Department of Labor to establish our paramedic certification program, affording those who wish to continue down this career path the opportunity to expand their knowledge and skills. Ultimately, the end result will be the significantly enhanced emergency medical services that we can provide to our community. We continue to bolster our current emergency medical dispatcher requirements by adding the emergency medical responder certification in addition to the required APCO certifications for our E911 dispatchers. We want to continue our public safety education and life safety programs aimed at our island youth that brings awareness and education that would potentially aid our youth in recognizing the need to call for medical or fire services. We wish to grow our self-inspection program for qualified small businesses in the community to meet the demands of fire code inspections, continue our smoke detector outreach and public safety education programs, and implement a confidence testing program for fire protection systems. Host and continue to dialogue with our local and federal response partners, conducting multi-agency response exercises to enhance our relationships, as well as improve our joint response effort to any emergency. Continue to train our emergency hazardous material response team, and work closely with the Guam Environmental Protection Agency and the Office of Homeland Security, the Office of Civil Defense, to equip our personnel to respond to any type of hazardous situations which may pose a threat to the island community. Continue to procure and purchase much-needed emergency response vehicles and equipment to replace our aging inventory. Acquire a maintenance facility for the Guam Fire Department Fleet Maintenance and Repair Section. Review the present ambulance billing program and the GFD fee schedule to be in line with current insurance reimbursables in order to recover our ever-increasing operational cost. Replace our legacy E911 system with the next generation 911 system. We are very close to finalizing this acquisition that will put the most modern technology and equipment in the hands of our professional emergency medical dispatchers so they can provide an even more effective call and dispatching service to our responders and the community. This system will also include a management information system that will monitor all types of suppression, EMS rescue, fire prevention, and investigation response, providing valuable statistics. Increase public safety community outreach programs in an effort to educate our communities regarding fire safety while fostering stronger community relations within our villages and our business areas. Our challenges. A significant number of our goals and objectives continues to be faced with challenges such as retirements, extended military deployments, and medical profiles. Despite these hardships, we remain a department that is task purpose-driven and mission-focused. However, these absences within our department will continue to test our ability to meet the NFPA and OSHA standards, most notably the 2-in, 2-out rule, primarily in our first-line supervisory positions. These gaps largely reside in our Operations Bureau, where the loss of institutional knowledge and experience within the first-line and middle management supervisory positions is noticeably felt. Keeping with the Governor and Lieutenant Governor's commitment to our island safety, we continue to work with the administration to address promotions and hiring of firefighters. Because of our attrition rate, reducing overtime expenditures while providing the necessary services to save lives and protect property at the level of service the community has come to expect and deserves is a constant struggle. In October of 2018, we added 45 firefighters to our ranks. However, in less than 2 years, we have had 21 of our personnel retire, and we are projecting an additional 5 by the end of this year. The Public Auditor's report on the Government of Guam's public safety overtime, which stated that the GFD's overtime expenditures, and I quote, had an upward momentum until it slowed down in FY 2018 and further decreased in FY 2019. Despite these recent decreases, GFD's overtime expenditures are likely to increase over the next 3 years based on the overtime paid over the last 5 years, end quote. This statement is accurate because the hiring of 45 firefighters in 2018 decreased our overtime expenditures during FY 2019. Because of the loss of 27 personnel through attrition this calendar year, however, we anticipate an increase in overtime expenditures to meet the operational staffing needs in our response facilities. Despite the attrition rate we are experiencing, we continue to work hard within our budget, to stay within our budget, while meeting the mission mandates of our department. Regardless of these hurdles, we pride ourselves in the accomplishments we continue to realize through the professional and selfless servants that make up the Guam Fire Department. Our highlights. We are on the verge of replacing our antiquated 911 system with the anticipated signing of the next generation 911 contract in the next few weeks. Safety is our priority. Therefore, we continue to equip our responders with the latest hazmat equipment, extrication tools, self-contained breathing apparatus, and automated external defibrillators. Recently, we were fortunate to have procured 9 ambulances, of which 3 are already on island, 4 scheduled to arrive at the end of this month, and a remaining 2 to be delivered by the end of the fiscal year. Other accomplishments include, but are not limited to, the first ever Community Risk Reduction Proclamation, which we're very proud of, attainment of the National Fire Academy's State Point of Contact designation, and the first ever Wildland Fire Investigators course for our personnel. What brings me most pride, however, is the community partnership and volunteerism of Guam Fire Department members, resulting in the renovation, repairs, and painting of the various fire stations around the island, numerous charity drives, cleaning and painting of school bus stops, construction of a bus stop bench, and donation of school supplies and equipment. Our ongoing future projects will be we have a commitment from GURA to secure funding through a community development block grant to build a new Sinahanya fire station. In addition, the Guam Fire Department is working with GITA to secure funding from investors to relocate and build a new Tumuning fire station. As a stakeholder, the Guam Fire Department continues to support the Department of Agriculture, GPD, and GITA to construct a boat ramp at Talafufu Bay. This provides a critical access point for rapid response to emergencies on the eastern shores, reefs, and cliff lines. This fiscal year, we will be procuring fire trucks and water tenders to replace our aging fleet. Although the Guam Fire Department has made significant improvements to its fleet maintenance and service program, the environmental elements, in addition to the island's hard water, have caused major operational issues to the last of the remaining fire trucks purchased in 2006. In collaboration with GCC, Department of Labor, and the School of EMS, the application process has started for those GFD personnel interested in attending our first paramedic course. After completing the 44-week course, we will graduate our first GFD paramedics. GFD will continue to develop and implement the EMT and fire inspector positions with DOA. This will establish EMT and fire inspectors' specific employment opportunities. The establishment of the junior firefighter program is being pursued and will provide volunteer opportunities to the young people of our community, providing with the knowledge of fire ground operations and fire safety. Revenue enhancements. Finally, along with our future projects, we will be working closely with your office, Mr. Chairman, and the office of Senator Clint Rigel to update our fees and fines schedule for our fire prevention, EMS, and fire suppression services, primarily to provide the enforcement and recover operational costs that will potentially translate into a decreased reliance on the general fund. The Guam Fire Department is an all-hazard response career organization that consists of the following: the Office of the Fire Chief, Administrative and Support Services Bureau, EMS Rescue Operations Bureau, Fire Suppression Bureau, the Training Bureau, Fire Prevention Bureau, and E911 Communications Bureau. Our proposed budget. The Guam Fire Department is requesting the total amount of $32,831,889 for fiscal year 2021. This amount reflects an increase of $637,456, or a 2% increase from its FY 2020 appropriations from all funding sources. The table below details the amount being requested from each funding source and reflects the amount of increase or decrease when compared to our FY 2020 authorization levels. From our general fund, GFD's FY 2021 proposal budget for the general fund reflects an increase of $612,936, or 2.2% when compared to the authorization level of 2020. Personal services increased by $151,263, or a 0.5%, and operations increased $461,673, or a 231%. The significant increase in operations is due in part to Object Class 230 contractual services and 290 miscellaneous that are being funded under the Tourist Attraction Fund during FY 2020. E911 surcharge. GFD's FY 2021 proposed budget for the E911 surcharge funding reflects an increase of $14,705, or a 0.7% increase when compared to the authorization of 2020. GFD's proposed budget for this funding source includes funding to adequately address personal services as well as operations and utility requirements to effectively and efficiently operate the 911 center. Inclusive in our budget request is to fund the estimated annual recurring cost reflected in our contractual service object class on our soon-to-be completed acquisition of the new state-of-the-art next-gen 911 system to replace the antiquated and unreliable current system being utilized. Under our Flame Fund, the proposed budget for the Flame Fund reflects an increase of $9,815, or 1.1% when compared to our levels for FY 2020. Funding being requested for this funding source will address the Guam Fire Department's annual requirements for equipment and capital outlay categories. GFD is in dire need of procuring medical, firefighting, and rescue equipment that are either damaged due to wear and tear or have exceeded its recommended operational lifespan. Furthermore, adequate funding for capital outlay will allow GFD to continue its yearly procurement of an ambulance to replace those that are defective and have exceeded its required lifespan. Lastly, GFD will be able to procure rescue jet skis and a heavy-duty rescue truck. Tourist Attraction Fund. GFD's FY 2021 proposed budget for the Tourist Attraction Fund is $824,374. And it remains at the same authorization from our FY 2020. GFD's 2021 needs and supplies are being requested from this specific fund source. It is imperative that funding be provided for GFD to address requirements for medical, firefighting, and rescue supplies, as well as to cover the cost for fuel for our fleet of emergency vehicles and other critically needed supplies to sustain operations. Lastly, funding being requested from this funding source will address utilities for all fire and rescue stations. This concludes our presentation, and I would like to assure you that GFD's proposed 2021 budget will provide the adequate funding necessary to sustain our current progression in maintaining and/or improving our level of public service. The Guam Fire Department is deeply committed to meeting our island's expectations and continues to provide the professionalism, dedication, and high-quality service that our island communities have come to expect from the men and women that make up the Guam Fire Department. I'm personally committed to work with each and every one of you to ensure the needs of our island are addressed within the realm of fire service and public safety. Thank you again for allowing me this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions and recommendations. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Stone. I have several questions, but before I start out with the questions, I'd like to first thank you and your men and women. And you do have women, right, in the fire department, right?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair.
Just want to make sure, because I remember back then when I was in the Department of Public Safety. I know your assistant fire chief there remembers back then It was only one uniform. It's called Department of Public Safety. Now you got the fire department and the police department.
That's correct.
But a few questions. Based on the report provided by the government regarding the coronavirus relief fund, GFD was approved funding of $2 million. Could you explain what the funds will be used for and how would this assistance impact your request for 2021?
1.75 for the truck. Okay, 1.5.
So, Mr. Chairman, so 1.75 of that 2 million is actually earmarked for the purchase of trucks.
Okay. And then the remaining, you're going to use it for PPEs and stuff like that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So for PPEs and other required PPEs that are necessary for operations.
All right, okay. And how would that impact at all? And the reason why I asked if it impacts your 2021, as you're getting new fire trucks and new equipment, did you project and was hoping that in 2021 you will be able to be funded for that? And if not, then so be it. But I just wanted to know if you were projecting any of that equipment in the future.
For 2021, Mr. Chairman, we would not be able to.
All right. Have you thought of, on all your procurement of all your equipment, maybe considering not to throw a curveball at the business community in Guam, but reaching out to the federal GSA so you can try to buy the equipment? You know how they do it in the States. They have a pool. All the equipment for the fire departments are there, and they're considered cheaper, and it's pretty much, they'll match the color that you need it on. You just need to put Guam on it. I'm just wondering if the fire department considered that. I asked that on the last administration. I never got a response from the chief, and the only reason I'm asking that is because you can't reach the federal unless you get the authority to reach to the federal GSA. So I wanted to know if you wanted to consider that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Then that's sufficient. I'll be able to figure out a way how to put it on the Budget Act to allow you that flexibility.
We appreciate
All
that.
right? Does your department have any outstanding retro employee salary payments as a result of the Competitive Wage Act of 2014? No. They had recent. Is there anybody that's due any retro pay?
No, sir. None that we're aware of.
Oh, wow. Great. That's great news to know.
Thank you.
There are only 3 funded vacancies in your request for heavy equipment mechanic, E11 administrator, emergency medical dispatcher. How significant are those positions in your operation? How will this affect your workload? You only got 3 positions. Is that adequate?
So, Mr. Chairman, we have been working within our means. We've got a couple of people who are dual-headed, and they've done an exceptional job in filling those gaps that we do have. As you noted, our heavy mechanic position we've announced a couple of times, and it's been a bit challenging finding any interested applicants. And as far as the administrative position is concerned, we're actually looking to try and hire that position, but we want to review the position description for it.
All right. There are 31 unfunded recruits in your request. How many fire recruits have you picked up this fiscal year and last fiscal year? And do you feel you are operating at adequate levels or you need the 31 positions funded? We want to know where you stand today.
Right, so we were not funded for the 31 positions. However, we continue to operate within our budgets and our budget and with the current staffing that we have. It does continue to be challenging, as I indicated in my testimony, with regards to retirements. That seems to be the biggest challenge that we're experiencing right now. And so we have been working with the administration to identify the ability to bring on the next cycle of firefighters.
Okay, but would you be willing to say that with the 31 unfunded, and I understand when you have retirees, when they retire, you can fill that. That's the easy one, because that's funded. But out of the 31 unfunded recruits, positions, would you be saying then that you would, if anything, maybe try to see how you can get 10 or 15 recruit positions funded? I'm just throwing the numbers out because 31 may be far-fetched, and I know the chief next to you is probably saying, ask for the world, hopefully you'll get half, and I understand that. But I just wanted to know if you can give us a number, because as my colleagues all, as we sit around here, when we go to the floor, when we're talking the budget, they want to get that warm and fuzzy feeling, says we need to take care of the fire department. I would support that, but it's the numbers that we're going to be looking at and the cost. So if you just say, would you be able to say out of the 31 unfunded, what would be the magic number? Not 31, but what would be a magic number? Because you want to grow.
Absolutely.
And make sure that you have a list of people that want to get employed. Because I'd be curious to ask you, do you have a waiting list of people to join the fire department?
So under the governor's direction, we were asked to submit to the Department of Administration a continuous open announcement for the recruit position, which we submitted last year, I believe about this time frame last year. We have continued to accept or DOA has continued to accept applications for this open announcement. And we were already in discussion with the administration, with the governor, lieutenant governor, to try and address those shortfalls that we have. However, the coronavirus wound up getting in our way as far as being able to make any progress in that. And so
what was the number of recruits you were hoping?
So the ask from the administration, Mr. Chairman, was to do 15 to 20.
Okay. All right. Are there any advantages and disadvantages that come with acquiring and implementing the next gen 911? And are the funds requested enough to supplement the impacts? And that's personnel training, increased workload that come with upgrading to a newer system.
And I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear the first part of your question, Mr. Chair.
The advantages and disadvantages with acquiring and implementing the next gen 911 system.
Oh, this is an absolute advantage, Mr. Chairman. As we've been coming before this body from previous years, the antiquated system that we've been operating with is far exceeded its lifespan. And although the men and women that occupy that call center continue to do phenomenal work up there, it's amazing what they do up there. It is time to replace that system. It's long overdue. And so with the acquisition of the next-gen system, it will put the latest and greatest of technology and equipment in the hands of these professionals. It will enable us to dispatch more effectively and more efficiently. And even more importantly is going to be collecting that data that the system will capture in order for us to be able to support requests for grants, formulate decisions, and things of that nature. So the increased training only complements the fact that the next-gen system is an advanced technology from what they've been used to using up there. Did I mention that I'm very proud of what they do up there? And so, yes, this is an absolute advantage to the people of Guam.
All right. Next question is firefighter volunteer program. You have a desire to develop a reserve firefighter volunteer program. What is the status of this initiative, and is it incorporated into your FY 2021 budget request?
No, Mr. Chairman, it's not, because as we reviewed that particular program, it does have its pros and cons, and most of it coming from the fact that it is a very expensive program to operate. If you can imagine having to provide PPEs to each one of these volunteers who may or may not show up at when the call goes out, can be a bit of a challenge.
All right. Okay. While your request for TAP funding is status quo from last year, you are aware that TAP is not performing at the levels appropriated. In FY 2021, depending on the recovery period, the TAP funding will likely receive less funding. How would GPD prepare for such shortfall? You just hope for the best, huh?
So we'll continue to hope for the best, and in the future, in the near future, should funding opportunities come available, I would hope that we can ask this body to extend the transfer authority to the governor to be able to assist us in those areas.
Yes. Okay. Flame Fund. I heard you mention earlier you'll be working with Senator Rigel on the fees to assist in reducing the dependency of general fund, fire inspection fee, and so forth. Do you have a proposed fee increase across the board? And I would actually ask that if you do, please provide that to Senator Rigel, so then maybe it'll be quite helpful if it's circulated among all the employees after the colleagues, and that when Senator Joe does introduce the bill, that may be something that may be offered to the colleagues to decide during the budget session, because if it's something that would help and it's to recover from the expenses, nothing is free. And the people of Guam need to understand that when you call the fire department, and if it's something that you shouldn't have been doing and you get a fine, you pay the time. And we'll move on from there.
You're absolutely correct,
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We continue to work with our oversight chairman, Senator Rangel, to address these areas.
All right, and thank you, sir. Senator Rangel, if you have any questions, sir, and you'll be followed by Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you, Chief Stone. I'd like to sort of follow up on some of that question, some of the discussion you were just having with the chairman on the budget. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the fees schedule. You and I have spoken about it, but since you brought it up, what exactly are you guys looking to? Maybe give some examples of some of the major fees you guys need to update.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate the question. So several of the major areas that we would like to address, one being in our EMS bureau. The fees that we collect for EMS transports is very nominal. We have a bylaw fee schedule of $95 for a non-urgent call response and $195 for an emergency call. You can imagine that either one of those fees collected it makes it very challenging us to even put fuel in the vehicles, let alone pay the salaries of our medics, as well as the equipment and medication that's necessary to provide those services to our community.
How does that fee compare to most states?
So there are different analyses that we have looked at, focusing more on our population served. It would be what we could recover from Medicaid is a minimum allowable recovery of about $500 or more. So that's just for Medicaid, not to include those who have insurance and we can recover costs and bill the patient for.
So you'd be able to bill Medicaid more?
So we would be able to. So their authorized minimum billing, it would be. I believe it's over $500. Might be a little bit more. I'm sorry, but we would be able to also recover that cost from the private insurance providers as well for their customers. However, it is my understanding, based on law, we could not charge the private insurance company the same as Medicaid. We would have to charge a little bit more.
Okay.
Sticking with another area that really we would like some attention brought to is in our fire prevention bureau as well. Our fee schedule is very dated. Just to give you an idea, the mom and pop store who's looking for an occupancy permit to open their business pays, I believe, a $35 fee. A $35 fee, and then you have a large multi-story complex, shopping mall or hotel who pays the same fee. So we would absolutely like to readdress that and look to see if we can't increase those fees just to be able to recover the costs associated with conducting inspections and providing emergency care to our community. So those would be the real two major areas that we would definitely need to look at. As well as other fees that are associated with whether it's medical standbys, things of that nature, fire permits, burn permits, and things of that, those items as well. It's been a while since we've looked at those fees.
Right. How old is your current fee schedule?
Since 1990, when it was effective? 14 years ago.
About 14 years ago now, Senator.
I see. Okay. Well, thanks for that. I do have another question. I know overtime is always sort of an issue with the fire department. Part of it is the nature of the job, of course, but I think the total amount allotted for overtime is somewhere close to $4 million or $3.8 million. What can be done to reduce overtime?
So to reduce overtime, it would mean, So if we can have additional firefighters brought on and promotions completed, we can actually have the ability to work towards reduction of overtime because we wouldn't have to bring in. So where we get most of our overtime is in our salary already. So it's 106 hours, and anything over 106 hours, the 14 hours is considered overtime. So that's a large part of our bill. But we do have overtime above what is already scheduled, so unplanned overtime, in order to continually man or staff the stations appropriately. And so we would have to call somebody in on their day off, which would incur the overtime cost in order to maintain the mission. So in an effort to reduce that, obviously, as in my testimony, the 45 that we did bring on in 2019 was able to significantly assist us in that regard. But as our senior firefighters and senior leadership start to retire, we start losing ground in that area as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Senator. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Clinton. Senator Lee, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good afternoon. Thank you also for the update on the fees and fines, and I'm looking forward to working with the Oversight Chair to move those along. So there are a number of line item expenses which were paid last year from the Flame Fund, but are now being requested as general fund expenses under your Administrative Services Bureau, and that includes more than $140,000 for oxygen tank refilling services, $88,000 for vehicle repair and maintenance. Can you just elaborate again what the reason is for the shift in the funding source?
You want me to take that?
If I may, Senator, I'd like to turn it over to Assistant Chief Mike Nkanko.
Hafide, Chief.
Is this on?
Yes, sir.
Oh, your question, ma'am, was why it was funded in Flame Fund this fiscal year and we're requesting for it in general fund this. Well, one of the programs we have is vehicle replacement in itself. And our program is to provide or purchase one ambulance per fiscal year so that, we won't end up having 5 or 4 ambulances during the entire year. So that's one of the reasons. We wanted to preserve or put money more into equipment and capital outlay, which is the purpose of the Flame Fund to begin with. And that's why we moved it over to the general fund.
Thank you very much, Chief. As you know, water safety remains a concern for our community, and we've seen some collaboration in the past between GFD and GPD, specifically with the Koban in Tumon, right by Matapang Beach. And I raised this in last year's budget with you, and so I just wanted to get an update from you on the idea to possibly expand that facility and maybe house a search and rescue unit in Tumon. We know that that'll really cut down critical response time and it will save lives. So I just, especially as we're thinking or contemplating reopening tourism and making sure that we're safe from the pandemic, we need to make sure that our residents and our visitors are also safe when they're enjoying what Guam has to offer. So if you could just give us an update on that, Chief.
Yes, Senator. Thank you for the question. I absolutely agree with you. But I am happy to say that, so we were in discussion with the Guam Visitors Bureau as well as the Department of Parks and Recreation for that particular property. We identified our needs, and unfortunately, again, COVID definitely refocused our priorities. So that was definitely something that was backburnered, but we didn't take it off the table. GVB is absolutely has their handful right now trying to get our tourism reinvigorated. So I absolutely agree with you, Senator, and we will continue to we'll re-engage in that discussion with them as soon as they can get some breathing room in their schedule.
Understood. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
There are a number of vacant fire captain and fire service specialist positions that are listed but not funded in your budget request. So how would you describe the potential for upward mobility currently at GFD, and how does your request and its lack of funding for these vacancies affect your ability to promote within? And I think this kind of ties into the question that Senator Rajel had in terms of trying to decrease overtime. So I know it's a delicate balance that you're kind of working with limited resources and limited warm bodies, but I just wanted to ask about the possibility for promotions.
Yes, Senator, and I share that same desire in being able to complete the promotions that are vacant in the Guam Fire Department. The last promotions to these positions was back in it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. And so I agree with you. I definitely would like to be able to promote to these positions, which will, again, as we've spoke about, assist in the reduction of overtime, because some of the positions, as I'm sure you're aware, that we need to call in are those first-line supervisory positions, which translates to a higher salary because they're more tenured and seasoned firefighters and or
So you're
lieutenants.
bringing them in, and you have to pay for that RDO council in addition to.
In addition to the scheduled overtime
Right.
that's already part of their schedule, their salaries.
Okay, thank you, Chief. We'll just continue to follow up with you on how the progress on that's going.
Thank you, Senator.
One last question. GFD has more than $327,000 in outstanding overtime payments dating back to fiscal year 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you,
Those would be typhoon-related
right,
expenses.
like, was it Typhoon Dolphin or which, do you recall which events?
I don't know exactly which event.
Okay, can you maybe give the committee a reason for why the department wasn't able to fund these prior year obligations this fiscal year, and maybe what guarantee has been given that cash will be available next fiscal year to finally compensate these employees for this overtime?
Yeah, I apologize, Senator. Let me turn it back over to Chief
You're
Ocaña.
asking whether we have made attempts to pay? We have made attempts, ma'am. As a matter of fact, 2 fiscal years we had lapses. We did make a request to compensate them. However, the administration at that time said they'll pay us the following fiscal year. Up to date, it still has not been paid at all. But we have submitted, as a matter of fact, we did submit our prior year obligations to the Chief Financial Officer for the administration, who in turn turned it over to Civil Defense because it's all storm-related overtime, which dated back to 2014.
Right.
Yes.
I guess my concern is, we can only do so much in appropriations in this branch, but when it comes to the actual cash on hand and paying those things out, and it's been an obligation for the government for years and years and years, and so it concerns me, and I just want to make sure that if you need help from this branch in pushing, that we do our job and help to do that to make sure that we don't have these obligations going forward. Thank you so much, Chief, for your coming before us and answering our questions. And I just want to take an opportunity to really thank the firefighters across our island and also their families for their service and their sacrifice during this time. I know it's been a real big challenge. And so I just want to thank you, Chief, for always being open to any of the questions that we have and coming before us and answering them.
Thank you, Senator. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Senator Tello, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much. And good to see you, Chief Stone,
How are you, Senator?
as well as you, Assistant Chief Nkunko. I really appreciate, Mike, you being here as well. And those who are outside in the lobby, I just want to do a shout out to those guys who are standing by ready to assist you. You've got a good team on your hand.
We've got an excellent team, Senator. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Excellent is a great word for it, And I appreciate all that you guys have been doing during this time of crisis and putting yourself at risk too, as well as your families too. So the job that you took on is a difficult one and definitely respected. My son actually passed his firefighting school, but it's very difficult to get a position in Arizona right now. I'm trying to get him to come back home to work here in Guam, but he found love there too. So, so I know it's difficult too when it comes to recruiting individuals. They have to go through a whole process, and because of this, how many, by the way, do you have deployed? Do you have any of your firefighters deployed right now?
At present, so we do have some firefighters that are on orders in support of the COVID response. But as
No, I'm
far
talking about deployed reserves.
No deployment.
so we do not have anybody on an extended deployment. No, everybody's returned back safely. I'm very happy to say.
That's good to hear.
Absolutely.
Very good to hear. For the
Agreed.
family too as well. So I do know about the typhoon retro that's owed to, is there anywhere in the budget you've incorporated to be able to pay that retro from the typhoon of payments for your people? Anywhere in the
No,
budget?
that's not within our budget. However, we did submit based on the request of the governor's office, we did provide them documentation in regards to our balance of what we've owed.
So is there
So-
any reason why you didn't want to incorporate it in the budget?
There is, in our budget, our line item, if you look at the digest in itself, we follow the format given to us by BBMR in itself. We did include it as a prior year obligation on the very last page of our budget. And if you look at our budget, it is there.
Yeah, so please feel,
It's part of that
Right.
in itself, yes.
well, please feel free to
Yes.
make an amendment of substitutes for your budget bill and incorporate that because it is definitely long overdue. Also, bless you.
Excuse me.
Yeah, it is
Sorry.
God
not,
bless you.
it is not within the ceiling we provided or we provide to, but however, it is part of the budget document.
Okay.
That there are prior year
Yeah,
obligations.
I'd like a copy of that if I can get
Yes,
one
ma'am.
later on. Okay, Chief? You
Yes,
know where my office is. We're right next to
Yes,
each
ma'am.
other.
Yes, ma'am.
Also, I know that Gura, the fire station in Sinhanya, why did Gura put a hold on this? Is that something that you guys don't want to pursue, or it's something that Gura says they're not going to pursue? What is the status with the Sinhanya fire station?
So no, it's not that they do not want to pursue it or we don't want to.
Yeah.
So it is not that either one of us wish to pursue it, Senator. What wound up happening is Gura has other projects that became priority for them, especially in light of the COVID crisis or the pandemic. So it's not completely off the board. It's just been placed on the back burner for the time being. But I was assured that we will re-engage with that discussion as soon as they're able to.
I hope so. That's a
I do
good
too.
area. Yeah, it's a good area. And you have a big populated area there too as well. So I appreciate that you fight for that station to
I'm
get back
confident
on.
that Guru will continue to seek out those funding sources for us.
Yeah, and please let us know what we can do to help too as well on that.
Thank
the
you,
other,
Senator.
the other thing, we all know that TAF is hurting. The TAF fund account is hurting very badly right now considering what's going on. Can you tell me exactly, you might have mentioned it earlier, it's kind of hard with the muffling on this, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating some questions. But can you tell me what do you pay for with the TAF funding that's given to you from TAF?
So let me pull that up for you. So with our TAF funding, we do supplies and materials. It also accounts for our power. I'm sorry. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I got to adjust my glasses.
Or
Apologize.
utilities,
Right. So supplies and materials, miscellaneous expenses, and power and water and utilities.
Power and water for the one at DNA building or the all around, all the stations?
For the response facilities.
Okay.
And supplies and materials.
You got less
well-
than,
and
you
I'm
got
sorry,
less
as
than
well.
$1 million. 824 is what you're asking for.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it pays for power, water, and some supplies and materials?
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
about
ma'am.
it, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so, Chief, things are happening quickly, so I suggest that you try to be creative in a situation like this, okay? It's just for that $890,000 to be creative, so look at, also, do you, the 911, how are you, I hope you're still being able to assist individuals with disabilities, especially the deaf community, when it comes to the 911, those individuals trying to call in. Are you still up to par with that, providing the...
So the current legacy system, Senator, it has the capability, but it would largely depend on those who are hearing impaired to be able to get the instrument, to be able to do the TTY, I believe is the term.
Right, that's
For
right.
them to be able to do that. I understand it is challenging for them to acquire that instrument locally, so it would be something that I'm not able to provide to anybody with that particular.
Well, what about the text capability? Because, an individual who's deaf, who's driving, is in trouble, they have their cell phone, they've got to be able to text an area. Do you still have that availability for them?
So we used to have the cell phone that was provided by one of the local telco providers as a donation, but we no longer have that donation available to us. So at present, for the hearing impaired deaf community, our ability to receive text to the call center is absent. However, that is absolutely going to be addressed with the next gen system. That system will have the capability for talk to text as well as text capability, receiving text from a cell phone caller.
If I'm not mistaken, there's a law that actually requires you to have that capability, be able to provide that service to you now. Did you know that?
It is my understanding, Senator, but it has been proven challenging for us to be able to. We will definitely take that back to.
But Chief, as something as simple as just having a cell phone, like most of us have, to be able to have a number to give to these individuals who have hearing impaired, where they're in trouble. I mean, many of them drive. And if they're in trouble, they have a car accident or something, they have to be able to call. So Chief, please, this is something that I think I asked you last year about. I should know because I'm the one that wrote the bill regarding for the deaf community to
Yes,
be able
Senator.
to have that. So that's something that's so easy within your grasp. Use your own cell phone, use somebody at the office's cell phone. But this capability needs to be done for those with disabilities. And we can't leave them out, okay? So it's very,
Understood, Senator. We'll definitely go back and
I'm going to follow up
address
with
it.
you next week. If not the end of this week, next week I'll follow up with you and see what I can do to encourage you to do this, and also show you the law that requires you to do it.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Teller. Chief, I'm going to ask that as the identified retro and any pay that's due, please identify all your retro pays, may it be disaster or whatever. Please address that, inform your oversight and myself, so we can take a look at that. Because if we don't see it, we're going to blame it on you. But we're asking you now, please provide that information. And let's just be fair across the board.
Yes, sir, we'll provide that specifically, but it is, as I had said earlier, it is part of the budget package. When
It
we
is?
present it. Yes, sir.
Every-
It's the very last or next to the last document out of all those pages.
Okay, well,
Yes, sir. But I'll provide you one specifically just for that.
please do.
Yes, sir.
Also, I'm going to ask a very short question. Very simple. I got this on text. To ask about the 120 hours for those assigned to the headquarters, they get the same as those out in the field, but they don't work those hours. I'm not going to question this. I'm just going to ask it. They're on a 9 to 5 schedule. Chief, if it's not right, it's not right. You take care of that, okay? If they're 9 to 5, they shouldn't be working 120 hours or whatever. You may have flexibility. I don't know. Do you want to answer that question?
Sir, all of our hours are accounted for.
Okay.
So I'm not sure not too clear about the statement, so.
All right. All they're saying was that they asked about 120 hours for those assigned to headquarters. I'm not familiar with how you guys are assigned. They get the same as those out in the field. I think they're talking about the stations,
Right?
but they don't work those hours.
Well,
They only work 9 to 5.
So that's not a true statement. So each one of the headquarters staff does have a schedule that is inclusive of 120 hours. So their hours are accounted for.
All right,
So
Chief.
they are scheduled. What may
Okay.
because they do reside in the headquarters, and the headquarters opens from 8 to 5, yes, but outside of that, they do other things outside of that, whether it be the chief of the day or other duties that we have in our organization.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Senator Luis Muñoz, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, sir, I do.
How are you, Senator?
Hello, thank you. So like the chair, Mr. Chair said that, you know, back in the day when it was all under one umbrella, that's why GFD holds true to my heart, because my grandfather was the fire chief at the time when it was public safety. So you do have a warm and fuzzy place in my heart. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And for all you do. I do have a couple of questions. So how many retirees did you say that you had or that are expected before the end of the year?
So we're projecting 5 more retirees by the end of the year. We have seen 21 in less than 2 years.
In less than 2 years.
Right.
And so the 15 to 20 that you hope to find, the recruits, those will just kind of replace the retirees? Is that how it's going to work?
Yes, Senator. So it'll help maintain the status quo that we're operating with. And then, as I'm sure you might be aware, that as soon as we get our more seasoned firefighters, I don't like to say older firefighters, as soon as we get our seasoned firefighters who are under the old retirement plan, once they've retired, we will start seeing a plus up on the staffing with that 15 recruits every year if we're able to do that. Because once, I believe it's the 15th or the 17th, I'm sorry, the 15th or 16th cycle is under the old retirement plan. Everybody else after that would be in the new, so we'll be able to have our firefighters in the ranks a little bit longer. And so
Okay.
15 firefighters every year would help plus that up eventually.
Okay,
And not break
so
the bank.
the retirees, and you just said there's none that's deployed now, but when it was, the season, I guess, I don't know what to call a deployment a season, but when the deployments are high, is that the result of the overtime?
So we do experience a higher rate of overtime during those deployment periods, absolutely. And then, as you're aware, we have a very high a high percentage of our island who serves in uniform in each one of the respective branches and components. And so as each one of them cycle through their deployment windows, we are impacted at different points. And so that's always been the continuing challenge that we've had, is the deployment cycles.
Okay, I noticed in the proposed budget for FY 2021, you've already included a lot of the overtime amounts in there. When the recruits come in, could that amount be shifted, what's proposed for overtime, over towards the new recruits? Because right now it's unfunded, but at this point, with your proposed budget with all the overtime inclusive already, can we just shift that amount over towards the recruits? Is that something that can be done?
No, that can be done, because normally it takes about a year after we hire for that recruit to be actually out in the field, to be counted as one of the crew members.
Okay, so
So-
what's proposed here is not
Yes,
even going to
yes.
affect this coming fiscal year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
No, Senator, you're right.
okay. I mean, it's good to plan ahead, right?
Yes,
God bless you.
Excuse
It's good
me,
to
I'm
plan
sorry.
ahead, but it's always good to have an idea of how we can incorporate less overtime, because I think that's one of the
Yes,
issues that
yes,
people
you're
keep
right.
bringing up about GFD is, oh, well, they got a lot of overtime, so,
Right, and just to reemphasize that a portion of that overtime is part of the schedule. The salary that they have is anything over 106 is overtime
Okay.
under the FLSA. So
Okay. How's your PPE supplies? Is it adequate? Is
are you
it working?
referring to the COVID response
Yes, mm-hmm.
center? So we are adequately supplied, and we continue to receive donations, and we submit our DLAN requests through Homeland Security, who's been very good about filling our requests for PPEs. We've also been working with the Guam Memorial Hospital, and different people and we share our resources at present. So.
Okay, so
yeah, to
we're
answer your
good.
question, yes,
We're
we are
good.
adequately
Okay,
supplied.
great, wonderful. And I also encourage the updating of the fees, to work with my colleague, with our colleague here,
Oversight
Senator
Chair.
Rigel.
Yes.
I imagine that it could be something like a tier fee schedule, like you mentioned, a mom and pop stores, versus a hotel unit with over 150 units, rooms. There's an unfairness there that they only have to pay the 35, like a mom and pop store does too. So
Yes, Senator.
I think a tier fee schedule would be.
We have
perfect.
several models that we will present.
Okay. And then finally, my last question would be, you mentioned ambulances. That's good news,
Absolutely.
right? 4 new ambulances coming in?
So we presently have 3 that are already on island going through their inspections and certification process.
Okay.
And then we have 4 additional that are due in the end of the month.
So total, that would be how many?
So actually, and then we have 2 more that are due in at the end of the fiscal year, before the end of the fiscal year. So a total of 9.
9. Is that a good amount? Is that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, congratulations on that. I'm sure
Thank
that's a
you.
big
Thank you.
success
There's
then as
plenty of
far as-
people to thank for that effort. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, well, congratulations. Thank you again, Mr. Chair. That was my final question.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Luis. Senator Kelly, ma'am, do you have any questions, ma'am?
Hungen. Hafidate and Sedus Maasi for coming out here and getting everything so well prepared. We had quite a lot to look through. You broke down information for us, and it was very, very helpful. So I want to start off by thanking you for your strong support of the Rip Current and Hiking Safety Awareness Program legislation. There were 14 senators who saw the value in better arming our community and our visitors with knowledge and other tools that is hopefully going to help save lives and cause less need, as you mentioned, for you all to go out for land and sea search and rescue. So we really hope that that makes a difference for our community. And it's very good to hear of the many upgrades to equipment and vehicles that you were mentioning, replacing that 911 system, the 9 ambulances, the 2 new fire stations that you're working on, and we'll continue to see through the fire trucks and water tenders. I was noticing as I was going through the material, there are 15 stations, I believe, that you have.
15 response. So it's 12 stations plus the 3 rescue bases,
Okay, so 12 stations and
rescue facilities. sorry.
15 altogether. So with that, are there enough fire trucks for each of the stations right now?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, and then with ambulances, how are those parceled out? So it's good news, as was mentioned by the Senator and with your response, that there will be plenty for all of us on the island, an adequate amount. But how are those parceled out? Is it 1 per station, or is it 1 per of the 9?
So actually,
units?
Senator, with the arrival of the new ambulances, they will actually replace the existing inventory that we have. And as we've indicated, the last purchase was since 2006. So there's a lot of wear and tear in those vehicles, a lot of mileage. They have been increasing as far as the maintenance budget is concerned. They've become a little bit more problematic in the maintenance area, although our mechanics continue to do a phenomenal job in maintaining our fleet, whether they're band-aiding or scotch taping, they do whatever they can to do that. So this is going to be a huge shot in the arm to be able to take those aged ambulances offline and then put our new ambulances online. How they're parceled out is ideally one day we would like to be able to have an ambulance at every station, but at present we operate with 7 ambulances that meets our requirements.
Okay, so we're going to be increasing it by 2, which is going to increase the ability for you to get out. And so that is good news. And yes, eventually, hopefully, we'll get an additional 3 and then have 1 per station.
And that kind of goes into our capital outlay with purchasing 1 every year, so that'll help in that effort.
Excellent. So I noticed in your in what you provided us that some of your challenges are the hard water and its wear on the equipment. Is there anything that can help mitigate that? Are there devices that can help?
The only device that I can think of right offhand is what most of us probably already have in our own residence is a softening system. But the amount of the size softening system that we would need for each one of our stations would be pretty expensive. But it is the nature of our water system on Guam in order to maintain the water system. So a water softening system might assist in that regard. And other than that, I'm not sure of any other system out there to be able to soften the water.
Well, and perhaps other fire stations out there are dealing with some of this, so maybe something's in the works, or there's something that one of the other fire stations are doing. I asked because, of course, we want to lengthen the lifetime of this equipment as much as possible and make sure it's at its top form. When you had spoken before, it might have even been when you were going through your nomination hearing, you had spoken about the difference between structural firefighting gear and wildfire fighting gear. Now, you're doing a very good job of updating equipment across many boards, so we really appreciate that. Is there or has there been any ability to procure any wildfire fighting gear for your firefighters?
So at present, no. The answer would be no. We do not have the budget to be able to procure wildland firefighting gear. However, the structural gear that's issued out for our firefighters provides the level of protection that keeps them safe. What wildland firefighting gear does is it's not as cumbersome, because as I'm sure you can imagine, the structural gear that we use to go into burning buildings and things of that nature provides a much higher level of protection and is a little bit more cumbersome, much heavier, and so ideally we'd like to get wildland firefighting gear, but it is one of those wish list items.
I think if I remember right now, it's trying to go back a year and a half off the top of my head, but I think that when I had done a rough calculation with the number of firefighters you have, it would maybe cost $500,000. So I hope we can continue to keep looking for grants or something. I mean, I do want to help and support and make sure that things are as efficient as possible for your firefighters and are perhaps keeping them from injuries as well. You know, cumbersome out there for 12 or 13 hours in our wildlands is perhaps a problem in some ways. But yes, I'm hoping at some point we'll all get some good news about that gear for your firefighters. And it was really good news as well to hear about the updates and fines to actually recover the operational costs. It's always that tough balance between trying to make a system sustainable so that indeed it's able to be better supporting itself. Now, you had mentioned that you can recover some of these costs, these fees, and at least for the fees part, from insurances. Does that mean that some of this is also paid off by MIP programs? Because we do have a high population of people who may not be able to afford insurance or have the means to do that. So does the MIP program help offset some of these fees, to your knowledge?
MIP, I'm not certain if that is something that, I'm not certain. I'll get back with you on that one though, Senator.
Okay, yeah, I just, I want to make sure that our community feels, because I definitely support the sustainability through the appropriate fees and fines, but we also want to make sure that community members feel like they have that ability to call, right? And so, yeah, I just didn't know the answer of whether the medically indigent, it's a little hard with this muffled mask, indigent program, if that was able to help out there. And I have just a couple of other questions. So there's been discussion already about the filling of vacancies, which was good, and meeting prior year obligations. So with the obligations from prior years that were discussed, they seem to mainly concentrate on the reassessment of wages and what would be owed and overtime. Are there any other types of obligations having to do with maybe something that was carried out because of typhoons that we're still waiting for FEMA to reimburse, or any other types of obligations?
No.
Good, and it's good to know that we're going to be working to get squared away on that, and that you have been doing your due diligence of requesting it and keeping track of it and working to move it forward. How have the federal grants from the Department of Interior for empowering insular communities and operations offset been used thus far? Have you received monies from the Department of Interior?
Yes, we have from the Department of Interior, yes.
Okay, and could you help us understand some of what you've done with those monies?
Yes, we do have DOI grants. We purchased, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to, in the process of procuring 2 water tankers that would greatly assist us, on places where there's inadequate water supply. We are on the operations offset that we recently received of $1 million. $424,000 was going to procure 3 ambulances, which we did. And the rest of them were going to what we call extractors, dryers for the PPEs for firefighters. The other portion of that is offset on personnel cost, which comes up to $578,000, $576,000. But that's presently what we have right now.
Well, Suzuis Maasi for leveraging federal funds. Those funds are there, and if we don't ask for them and work with them, then we don't get them, or they're actually sent back. So I do appreciate that you're leveraging and you're putting it to really good use, those monies. Are there any additional grants that you're planning on applying for? And forgive me if I missed it in what you shared. Are there any grants that you have in the works for this coming fiscal year?
Senator, any grants that we are eligible for, we can avail ourselves of, we always submit for. However, fire service grants are highly competitive, as you can imagine, because we're competing against everybody in the nation. And so we, every year, submit our requests, and we try to make them as competitive as possible. And some years we're successful, and some we're not. So every grant that we can possibly what's it or widget into, we absolutely apply for.
Excellent. And I know in the past I've asked you about your partnerships with the military, and it seems like there's been a good history of collaboration between the fire department and the military's firefighting units as well. So I'm sure that that's continuing for this time. So yes, it's very good to see you leveraging in many different directions. So the last question that I have is, there has been some discussion about using the CARES Act monies and so forth, and you mentioned having enough PPEs. So with the monies and the protocol that are out there, are your needs being met to provide what you feel is the proper social distancing measures for your firefighters and for the work that you do? Is there anything that you want to share about needs, or are all your needs being met at this time?
So we continue to evaluate our needs, and as far as being able to socially space firefighters in the fire station, they do a very good job about maintaining those the spacing requirement, but it is a small fire station in some places, and so whatever precautions we can put in place with hand cleaning, especially face coverings, things of that nature, that's what they're utilizing in the fire stations.
Well, Sujus Maasi for all of your answers, and Sujus Maasi to the chair for letting me ask several questions.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Jim Moran, do you have any questions, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the presentation. Previously, we heard Guam Police Department give their statement on their budget, and they also were discussing about duties and responsibilities they had to perform for events that they're not paid for. They gave an example of the Liberation Day parade and other running events that happen often that they had to, I guess, provide security and different things like that. I know the fire department has many public events that you folks also support. Can you give me some of those examples of events that you had to be present at and that eats up your budget because it's not something that you're paid, your services aren't paid for by doing those events? Please expand on that.
As far as events are concerned, Senator, whatever events we do support, we either support with those that are already on duty, or if there are events such as a sporting event, there are fees associated with that. So somebody who would request our service would go down to the business center and be able to submit their application and permit request. And then there's a fee associated. So there is a cost recovery for it. Although in line with the discussions that we continue to have with Senator Rangel, trying to address those fee schedules, that's one of the areas we would like to look at to address, or adjust, I'm sorry.
So like the marathon events, the other running events, are they paying the fee then? That's what you're saying. They are charged a fee and they do provide payment for the service.
So most events are paid for. Some events are used with volunteers. So like for the marathon, there are several firefighters that, while they're off duty, volunteer to support the event. So that's how that event is covered. Plus, we use the on-duty personnel to also support that event, strategically placed throughout the race route specifically to the marathon. And then any other events is, as far as the Guam Fire Department is concerned, we either collect a fee or we support it with those that are already on duty.
So with that, you're not losing, it's not costing you, in other words, is that what you're saying? Or you want to relook at those fees because it doesn't equal,
Yes.
What would that current fee be, for example?
I don't know exactly what that fee would be right offhand, Senator. I'm happy to share that fee schedule with you. But it's definitely something we would like to bring some attention to.
Okay, I appreciate it because basically GPD wanted us to get rid of any unfunded mandates because they just can't perform it. They just don't. The manpower and everything and the resources are stretched, and why ask the police or, in your case, the fire department to do something that we're not paying you to do and it cuts into your budget. But thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moreland. Senator Rangel, you had one follow-up question, and we can wrap this budget hearing up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, actually, just a couple questions, but they should be pretty quick. The first one is, could you tell us how many firefighters you expect in this coming fiscal year, FY21, that you may lose due to attrition?
So we've already lost, I believe, 4 or 5, and we're tracking an additional 5 by the end of the year. So that would be a total of 10 firefighters that we would lose from the ranks this year.
So in the coming fiscal year, at least 5 At least 5?
Oh,
is
I'm
that what
sorry,
you're
during the fiscal year, I apologize.
saying? Yeah, so I'm thinking fiscal year 21, how many firefighters you think you may lose to attrition? So of course, that would be anyone up for retirement that
Yes.
year, and
Well, sir, we average 17 retirees or resignations a year.
but
That's
that's for FY20, right?
Yes, we've averaged that for the last 5 years.
So
every year.
probably you could safely say somewhere around that range for
Yes.
FY21, 17?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We are trending in that direction, yes.
Okay, thanks. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then one final question. You kind of mentioned earlier something about equipment for grass fires being sort of on a wish list. Is that right? Is that what you were saying?
Yes, Senator, that would be the wildland firefighting gear, which is separate from our structural gear.
Okay. And so are you lacking a lot of gear in that area?
It is gear that we have not been able to replace in recent years. So that would be an area that we would need to bring some attention to should we be able to afford it. Right now, presently, the requirement is the structural firefighting gear that we issue to all of our firefighters, which meets the requirements. And although it would be very cumbersome and much hotter, it would meet the need for the wildland firefighting if necessary.
Okay, and so that's not in this budget request?
No, it is not.
Okay. I would recommend, add it into the budget request or ask us to put it in the budget request if that's something you guys really need, for your firefighters out there. We can't always guarantee that we'll fund it, but
Right.
if you don't ask, it doesn't get funded.
Understood.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rizal. And when you identified the attrition, I know the chief's not going anywhere. He's got at least 5 more years to go, so he's okay.
We're gonna hang on to him as long as we can, sir.
There you go. There you go. Time down. Anyway, thank you, Chief. And thank you, my colleagues, for the questions you've asked. The committee will conclude this budget hearing with the Guam Fire Department on Bill 282-35. The committee will continue to receive testimonies. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing, and submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. Si Jules Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing on Bill 282-35 LS relative to the Guam Fire Department is now adjourned at 2:30 p.m. And thank you very much. We will return at 3 o'clock for the Department of Public Works. Thank you, Chiefs. Have a nice day.